Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Desi Crypto Show. Today, we have a very special guest, Barthazian, with us. He is an NFT OG and quite active on Twitter and talks a lot about investment, talks a lot about NFTs, and more likely, he just seems to have a lot of fun being here in the space, right? So, he's a very interesting person, according to me, and that's why we have him here. And we'll get into what he does and who he is. But firstly, welcome, Barthazian. Welcome to the Desi Crypto Show.
Thank you, Dheeraj, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
That's very good to know. So before we get into NFTs and crypto, let's talk about you. Who are you? Where do you live? And what do you do? And how did you get into crypto?
Well, right now I live in Abu Dhabi. Right now I'm a full-time crypto and NFT trader. I have like a bachelor's in engineering. I worked for a while in that. Then I did a master's in psychology for a bit, and then I started my own. I had my own startup. It was like products. It was like cosmetic products, like for the beard oil, beard wax, hair oils, and stuff like that. Then during that time that I got into crypto, that ICO phase. So I believe my first crypto purchase was in 2018, maybe March or something like that. And it went into some random shitcoin. I think it was Skype Chain, my first one. They had like this ludicrous idea of doing industrial drones and stuff like that. So at that time, you're like a complete noob, and you don't understand value prop as well as you do once you're in the market for a while. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a game changer. But yeah, it was scam. It was a complete scam. It's zero right now. It's worth zero right now. But yeah, that's my first foray into crypto. And so that's basically how I'm here right now. So NFTs, it's a bit later on. Like I think it took around me 7 or 8 months after like buying different kinds of ICOs and shitcoins, like altcoins during the bear market of that time between March and I think September to October. I was just only in altcoins and stuff like that. And during one of my altcoin purchases, Elastos, it's still live. It's the chain is still live, but I don't think it's that well used. So they had this DPoS voting. It's like delegated proof of stake, where you like give the voting power of the coins you hold to certain node holders. And in one of those nodes, they had some kind of lottery for if you have like 50 Elastos or something, and I had like 49. So I was in their Telegram. I'm like, oh, I only have 49. So there's one dude, I don't remember his name, but he came and gave me just one Elastos so that I can be included in the lottery thing. And then I just started talking to him about mining. I'm like completely clueless at this point of time. I didn't even know what mining was. And I told him, I want to get in mining. And then he basically shilled me this. I think it's an NFT, but not sure if it's an NFT, but basically a blockchain-based game. It's called Fish Chain. It's still live, by the way, but I don't think there's much users. So it's like this intermediary between being a kind of visual staking thing along with CryptoKitty breeding concepts. So you basically breed fishes and then you put them into fish balls, which you have to buy. And a part of the purchase goes into a common mining pool. And depending on your mining power, which varies according to the genes, you get certain amount of coins out. That's my first foray into this aspect of like blockchain based gaming and stuff like that. But that was pretty much a dud. But that's my first foray, and after that I started searching for blockchain games.
Awesome. So I have few questions. You studied mechanical engineering and then you studied psychology. How was that shift? And what made you study that?
In a way, you know how the Indian culture is, right? So you either become an engineer or doctor, and then you decide what you want to do with your life. So it's pretty much the same thing. After my 12th, I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't want to be a doctor at that point of time because my elder sister was one, and then I saw all her huge books. I'm like, oh, I don't want to study that. Although in hindsight, right now, I would have liked to study that, but at that point of time, the view of the world is different, and then you got into the next choice was engineering, and within that field, mechanical seemed to be the most appealing one to me because you can visually see what's happening and you can understand from that visual aspect. So that's how I got into it. But during my engineering phase, I had like huge interest towards psychology in general. How you understand like visual expressions and a bit of cognitive science kind of interest. And during my final years, I did some paper presentations on bionic prosthetics and brain-machine interfaces and stuff like that. So I dwelt into that at that point of time. That's when I knew I had like a kind of vested interest, not vested interest, like a deeper interest in cognitive science, so to say. And I took a year after mechanical, and I was like, yeah, I think I want to do psychology. My initial interest was a bit more towards social psychology, but then once I got into psychology, I was like, yeah, definitely it's more into because I had like transferable skills in terms of like coding, like basic coding on Python, and I could like design tests for studying different types of visual attention and stuff like that. So it kind of mixed together in a way. My thesis for masters was visual attention, so exogenous visual attention, where I had to like code what you call a basic program. I don't remember the software, but yeah, I code basic programs to measure your reaction speed and how your exogenous visual attention works and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I like connected both in a way.
That's very awesome. That's very cool because I studied psychology as well. I did clinical psychology. I actually wanted to do business psychology because I really liked the idea of like consumer behavior, organizational behavior, and the economic aspect of it. Right, like why do we buy? Why do we sell? And like when we look into it right now, like psychology completely explains the hype cycles, the buy cycles, the sell cycles,
Completely.
FOMO, hype, and whatnot, right? Like, so it's very interesting. I think I did something similar. Like, I took like computer science in 11th, but it was so outdated what they were teaching us. And like you had to take science, and then so you had to take physics, chemistry, and maths, and I'm like, dude, I'm not really interested in that. Like, I just want to learn to code and do my own thing. And I was like, this is not happening, because I used to score so well in computers, and like they were teaching us VB6, which is also very old.
Okay.
But
So
it
you
was
did okay. That was bioinformatics, right? The stream you did?
no, it was just called computer science. So it basically it's
Okay.
science, but you have
Okay.
one added subject of computer science and
Okay.
hardware slash
Okay. Oh, okay.
stuff like that. So but like you still had PCM, right? So I'm
Okay.
like, I'm not doing this. And then I changed in 12th. I got into arts. I'm like, I did decent in like history and social sciences and whatnot. And I didn't take psychology that time, but in my bachelor's I took psych.
Okay.
And it was just a fun experience to learn all these concepts, which are so we use so much in our day-to-day life. So I find that pretty intriguing. Anyway, so moving on. So in 2018, when you joined, did you join it in a bull market, or had the market already crashed?
It was on its way down, so it's like the downward stage. So I think my first ETH buy was around 300, and then it went up to 800 or something. But basically, it's that massive drop, and then the complacency stage and stuff like that. Yeah, but during that time, yes.
Very cool, very cool. So that's very interesting. So what happened, right? Like when you started investing in all these projects which like promise the world to you, but they just take your BTC and ETH. That's what it was. And how did you get into, like, when did you start liking the space, right? Like, oh, this seems interesting.
I mean, it was always interesting. That's one of the reason I got into it. So yeah, definitely there is the aspect of returns. It would be what you call ingenious to say that it's not for the returns for the tech. Yeah, even though we say we're in it for the tech, but yeah, the tech is definitely attractive. What can be done is definitely something that drives. Oh, this is amazing. But in the essence, at that point of time, it was all about returns. So but you start to understand how they are kind of related. So as the tech is more used and how if it's more well received, you have a better value driver to it. Although there are arguably meme coins and stuff they do not deliver, that's a different aspect to it, because the majority of the price driver is always psychological, as we said before. So it's always people coming in, and it's always liquidity that comes in. But there is always a value prop to it. So you can find proper value in value investable coins and tech-based stuff like that. So that's my basic interest towards it, how it came along. So it's always been there, and I've always liked it. Just you kept learning along the way as you went on.
Awesome. So we are in the tech. That's exactly what we say in the bear market.
Yeah, we are in it for the tech. Cool. For us now, it's in it for the art.
Yeah. We love the JPEGs. Right?
Yeah, like we love the JPEGs.
Yeah. So what was your first taste of profit, which you sold, or when you remember?
First state of profit. I mean, realized profit or just unrealized profit? Because those are two different things.
Both.
So I think my first unrealized profit was this coin called Abyss. It was a gaming token. And IoTex, yes, before that, IoTex. There was this one chain, IoTex, where they had this kind of donation where you donated towards a grant and you would get a percentage of their coins. It's still live, by the way. They do IoT. It's an IoT-based blockchain, and I think they just got listed on Coinbase. So the team is actually pretty good, and I think they're developing it really well. It's just too early for its time, in my opinion. And I had I think 0.1, maybe 100x return on it, but I never sold it. So yeah, it's now I think in dollar terms it's still positive now. I held it for 3 years, I think 3 years now, still holding it staked, and I'm not looking at it anymore because it's a very small percentage of my portfolio now. But that'd be my first unrealized one of my memory. For my realized one, it would definitely be NFTs, the one I actually sold, and that would come from, I believe it comes from CSC, Crypto Space Commander.
Yeah. So hey, we were talking about your first NFT profit. What was it? What was the flip?
To be honest, I don't remember properly. It was Crypto Space Commander that I'm pretty sure about, but I'm not sure which one, because it wasn't a large amount. Yeah, because it wasn't a large amount. I was playing with really small capital then. I think it was less than 1 ETH when ETH was 200 or something, less than 200. And it wasn't a large flip, maybe a 0.1, 0.2 or something. But most of my revenue then wasn't actually from flipping the things I buy. It was actually from playing the game, and you could play the game to earn resources and then selling the resources.
That's awesome. So that was early days play to earn.
Yes, early days play to earn. Yeah.
Yeah. So how much were you making? Was it enough? What did you think about the gaming system? Because from what I understand, you are an avid gamer as well, right? You like gaming. So how was blockchain gaming in its early days?
It was very rudimentary. So it wasn't something that you'd enjoy the mechanics, but the graphics, the delivery, the entire feel wasn't as good as a AAA game, because it's all starting out. CSC in general, I used to enjoy the game mechanics of mining, and it was kind of meditative sort of thing. And the market was pretty healthy at that point of time. It clocked the most volume for a couple of months, and initially there's a lot of volume on it. Before any of that was, I could argue that was one of the most the main play to earn games at that point of time. You had big whales in it, like Coco. Coco was one of the main whales in that. Also, he was there in Axis. Then there were a couple of other people also, like Enforcer J, if you know him from Axis also. So it was it was a pretty vibrant community then, and it was really good also initially, because it was you had these guilds, and you had this whole teamwork kind of thing where you had to play to earn more. There was an aspect to it where you can actually play and actually grow your stack. So that's what we used to do at that point of time. I used to play a lot. I used to spend a lot of time on it, and I used to mine all these resources from the games. But later on, the team kind of overinflated the supply, and they had a lot of exploits in the game. So yeah, it kind of got it died off in a way. But yeah, that initial couple of months was really good for that.
That's very interesting, and this is also a very common theme, right, in games when it comes, because people tend to mess up the economies, and
Oh,
in games
easily.
it's all about the economy. And I think I really wanted to discuss this with you, because I think on a tweet thread also we were having the same conversation,
Yeah.
that people think it's so easy to create a game, because, like, they can design characters or hire someone to design characters and put them in the blockchain, or, like, make them fight or do anything, right? But the most important part of a game is its economics. This is
Yes.
what I think. What do you think, and what are your opinions on this?
Well, it depends on the type of the game. So when we're saying play to earn, yes, definitely economics is the one of the major factors. There's always the fun element. So you can always have a game that's just fun that has no economics, and it's totally fine because you're not playing it for the money. And sorry, if by any chance there are skins in the game that are well sorted after, and there are people buying it, that's a bonus part of it. But the essential part of that game is the enjoyability, and it
Mhm.
can be on different levels. Can be social. For example, Dota is one of my highest, like I play that the most. And the main reason is it's a social thing for me. I have friends who have been playing it since school, and we still play because we just catch up, we just talk random shit. We're not like competitive players. We just have fun playing it. And more than the game itself, I rarely play it alone, like really rarely. I play it only with my friends because it's a social thing for me, and it's socially fun for me. And then you
Mhm.
have other games like FPS games that you actually can enjoy. Like where there's a lot of action, where there's a lot of game mechanics within it. That's another aspect of it. That's a different genre within it. But when it comes to play to earn, like where the actual earning element comes in, yes, economies are fundamental to it. Like for example, Eve Online. I believe WoW can also be in there. I haven't played it, so I can't make a educated guess about it. I can say some things about Eve because I dwelled into it when I was playing CSC Space MMO. Because a lot of people who played Space CSC, they came from an Eve kind of background, so I learned more on it at that point of time. Most of these games, they didn't actually start out as economic games. They started out as a game that had economic elements, and over time they what you call reiterated it to make it okay. Now the thing with such games is that they don't have an active market, like an active market where you see the difference. Like no one is going to come into the market and dump like 1,000 of their pieces. If a person crafts 1,000 of the items, it's still going to be in their in-game element where there's no natural value to it. So it can be valued at zero in the real world, and it's still fine for a game that's not based off a play to earn economic. But the moment you start out as a game that has a play to earn element, then you are in a very difficult position to say. Like it's not impossible, it's possible, but it's very difficult because you screw up. There's one exploit, or you screw up one small problem, and your entire market crashes, and that affects the sentiment of the entire community. So you have 1,000 players who are actively involved in the community. They'll keep buying because they like the game. They want to expand their base. And then there's one exploit that drives the entire value of that 1,000 people down. You have a whole community of disappointed gamers, and that's really bad. You can't keep a disappointed community. It's very difficult to retain them.
Yeah, this sounds like one bad apple can, like, destroy the entire
Like this.
game, like, and not in person, but like could be
Yeah.
anything. Is there anything you remember from your time, like something like this has happened in any of the
Oh yeah.
games?
Oh yes, definitely. With CSE, because I was an avid exploiter, but I not code based because my technical skills is not that well, but game mechanics based. So there were a lot of, how do you say, holes in the way they designed certain game elements, and naturally I'm like, okay, I'm not going outside of the TOS because I'm not doing any botting, or I'm not hacking the what do you call game or anything. I just know there's a hole in the game mechanic, so I used to exploit it, and I believe there was one where they had this mining crate, and they gave like 20 of the mining crates. So mining crates were around 0.15 ETH a box, and they gave 20 of the mining crates for a mission task that was supposedly supposed to take at least 12 hours based on travel times. But there was a small exploit in it, because they had a different element where they couldn't put what do you call permanence. So if you die, there's permanence, so you won't get your ship back. But since it was early alpha stage, they didn't have permanence. So there was a small exploit in between it where you could kill your ship and then retake it from another station, and that then you could just automatically, it has all the cargo. So that was an exploit in the thing, and a lot of people knew about it. I think I was the first one to find it. Then I told a couple of my friends. Then they told a couple of their friends, and it was expanded.
Yeah.
And after that, there were a lot of people buying the mining gear. But what happened soon after that is just the entire value for those mining gears just started to crash because the supply just inflated like this out for zero cost. I mean, the idea was good of what they did, and if it actually worked in their mindset, that would have been a good how do you say, seeding of the environment. But it didn't work in their how they thought about, because the entire game mechanic was not perfect.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Cool. So that's that. And then when did you start buying NFTs? Right? Like when were you like, hey, I'm done with probably this, or like what happened after like this game crashed and the economy crashed? What did you do?
Okay, so it happened in between. So it's not just before it completely crashed. So even after all these exploits and stuff, it still had a decently healthy community. There was certain like price variations between the items and stuff like that, but the market was still decently active then. And I think I started in March of 2019. I think this game, I believe I did. And then in September, they had the Star Trek crate sale, and Pranksy came in. And he came in to flip, and he just started buying up the supply and then flipping it because there was an active market for it. And he did it like a daytime job at that point in time. He used to he used to sell a lot of items. It's like the way he is able to sell that itself is like a unique skill. Imagine getting on OpenSea, and it wasn't directly an NFT. It was on their server, and then you had to mint it. So he had to mint like thousands of NFTs, okay, using their front end. Then they had to go to OpenSea and then list thousands of that NFT. So that itself is amazing what he does. Yeah, the level of tenacity that requires to do that is wow. And that's one of the reasons he's at the top. The volume he does, I don't think most people can do it, simply because of it's not the capital, it's the ability to list that much at that level is like, it's a unique skill in my opinion. There are very few people who do it. So you're saying?
Yeah, I'll ask you more, right? Like, so
yeah, okay.
Just let's talk about Pranksy. That was also, I think, like early Pranksy before, like, I think like he very much blew up like very recently. But like, how was like early days when like, a whale like him came into the game? What did you guys think?
I think he was he was already decently well off, not like very well off. He already had a large stack. He made decently off from CK, but he kept moving between markets. But him coming into the market was really good, because before that, it was Coco and a bunch of other whales who had it, and they never like sold it for less. They always had this kind of like price pyramid kind of thing. Yeah, the premium. Yeah, they were like, either you buy it here or I don't care. So it was difficult for smaller players because we can't gamble on crates, when you have a small amount. So it was difficult for us to get the items we needed for a lower cost. But Pranksy coming in was wonderful for the market then, because he used to sell based on the crate pricing and his entire volume. He didn't sell on a massive premium, and he kept doing that for the volume. He didn't want a large amount of return on it. He just had enough that he could keep doing it. And that was good for smaller players. We could go to him directly, talk to him for a larger deal, and he used to give good discounts. He was good to deal with initially in that stage. So for smaller players, we loved him. For the bigger players, they hated him. Coco hates him because of that. Because there was a huge, he just came in and the price entirely of the entire market stabilized on a more dealable level, so to say. And that was actually pretty good. And so after that, I think in maybe December or something, I started. We had a couple of chats along the way, like when I went to buy stuff from him and stuff like that. And after that, there was this. I think in January sometime, I decided that I saw that this Pransky has a market acumen, right? There's no one. I never saw anyone else who has that kind of market acumen. So I'm like, okay, I'll see what this guy does and see if I can like replicate it in some way. And he started buying Nate Alex's chain faces. And I was like, okay, I'll see. And I'm like, okay, let's see. And I minted a couple of chain faces then. I did some small flips from CSC, so I had like maybe like a 2 or 3 ETH stack then. And then what I did is I got one of the chain faces flipped for my like 3 or 4 times the amount I put in. So I was like, wow, okay, wow, I did not expect that, and that was that easy for me to do it. Like I just listed and it went. I'm like, wow, this superb return, and I kind of got addicted to generative art at that point of time, not because of the flip, because of the idea of getting all these random combinations, and then you have this. You got to search for which is good and which is bad, and what kind of stories are there behind it. Like this one combines with this, and it's a face like this. It's really cool in that way. And after that, there was another one that came in. I believe it's Bits for AI. It's still live, but I mean the minting is not live. There was only 2,000 pieces, 2,000 supply. The supply was it was based on some kind of a FOMO curve or something like that. It's like an interesting mechanic. The dev is actually pretty amazing, but he's like very inactive. He just comes and goes. He's kind of an artist and coder, bit of both. So yeah, I got into Bits for AI. I did a couple of fits then, but Bits for AI was like completely hooked. I think maybe I just sold a little in the initial stage to get some capital back, but then I held most of it and then accumulated more when like everything was on the lower end because I love it. Just the way it is designed, the story behind it is just beautiful for me. So I love it. I still have I think maybe 70 or 80 pieces of that. So that's my second foray into it. And then after that, it was like any generative art comes out, if it's like looks good, I'm like, I'm buying that.
That's super awesome. So why? I mean, you did discuss, but why generative art? And is was there a market for it when, like, you were buying and selling? And why are people getting into generative art? So maybe we can start, right? Like, why for you? Why generative art?
Okay, for me, the idea of buying something and knowing that it will be okay, something like this, but I don't know what it will be. The idea of that jack in the box, like where you're like, okay, let's see what comes out. That's amazing. It's kind of gambling. A part of it is gambling where you have the rarity tires, but then there's a part of it that's also randomness, just randomness. Doesn't have to be rare, but even if you get something random, it's beautiful in its own sense. And these are all unique one pieces. These aren't repetitive. These aren't open editions like you saw in Nifty Gateway. These aren't the same things having several editions. There's a large collection, but each one of them is unique. And that's beautiful for me, like where you have an entire collection, a largest subset of a collection, and then each one of that is unique based on the way the code apparently got generated randomly. That's beautiful. That's a human element of us minting it, and then the computer element of it generating it out. That the very aspect of how that's created is beautiful in the way I see it. That's how I basically got hooked to generative art.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, do you also collect art otherwise, like physical art, before you got into crypto?
Oh no. So I was a guy that thought like art, like why do people even buy art? It's just a bunch of paintings and random crap. Like yeah, that was my initial thought into it. Although now it's changed. Initially I was like, why art? So that's also one reason I never got into one art NFTs when it was really cheap because it didn't make sense to me. I mean, why would I pay $100 for some kind of digital image? And I thought it was like just a small subset of people collecting it. And I was like, yeah, okay, that doesn't make sense. But then later on, I changed my mindset. I think the first art piece that I might have bought was from Primal Cypher. But the reason either it's Primal Cypher or Silvio Vieira, not sure which one. The Primal Cypher one, because he had some sale. He's like, you can bid any amount, and I'm just clearing out my Maker's Place account. I'm like, okay, sure. And I bid like very low amounts, and he just accepted it, like low ball bids. I'm like, I don't like doing low ball bids because it's kind of like, you're not giving the artist kind of like respect kind of thing. But it was like, he's fine. Like, yeah, I just want to clear it, whatever bid you want. I'm like, okay, fine. And those actually did pretty well because Prime Cypher is like pretty well known now, and his art is actually really cool. And the first one piece I believe I bought is from Super Rare was Silvio Vieira's The Forge. And I bought it after I bought my Avastars. So a lot of the people in Avastars, the Discord group, were like they used to collect art and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And that's the first piece of art I bought, Silvio Vieira's The Forge. It's beautiful. I still have it. It's one of my favorite pieces. And yeah, that's my first foray into the art side of it.
That's very cool. So we'll display all the images while you're talking of whatever you own, so that people can see what we are talking about. And we'll just talk a little bit more about generative art. Tell us about projects to look out for, projects you initially started investing in, and what do you find interesting now?
Uh, so it's a thing with generative art is it's a bit difficult to say where the narrative goes. So in my opinion, in the longer term, generative art is going to be a very strong genre within art, like impressionism, cubism, all that kind of different genres that we had. Generative art will be at some point of time. It's not going to be in a year, 2 years. It could be like 10, 20 years. But in a long form kind of time, it will be a very strong genre within art. Even though it's actually been prevalent since a long time before. But till now, we didn't have a way of actually showing ownership. And there wasn't a healthy market around it, so to say, because it was just people generating it on their computer and then the picture. So there was no ownership element to it. But now that NFTs have given a way for it to have ownership, it's going to fledge into its own market within the art market. And in terms of investing, it's actually very difficult to say which one will land. So the way I go with it is one is the on-chain elements. So how much of the data is stored on-chain? Like, can I recreate the element with whatever is there from my NFT? That's that's a very important factor for me. So some of the ones I have right now is Squiggly What the Fuck. That's not the squiggles of Snowflow. It's the one of Nate Alex. That was also really fun to do because it had all these unique auction elements. Then I had some chain faces. I still have some chain faces because it's an early generated project. Bits for AI, as I said, because it's got a unique story. The way the artist thought about it, it's like it's an NFT for future AI collectors. Not sure whether it will be developed further or not, but even then, it's still a relic for me. I like keeping it. And then there was also one meta glitch, which basically it was a composable NFT where you could glitch one of your NFTs that was allowed to with another glitch and it would sire a new glitch. So it's like a unique algorithm kind of thing. That's also like pretty good. That's also closed down now because gas doesn't allow it to be generated efficiently anymore. So I think there's like maybe 1,000 supply of it or something. But it's like it's a small thing, but it's pretty good. But all of these I don't believe are good what do you call investment stuff. It's something you do if you want to collect something that's based on the past. Then the ones right now, as where the volume is art blocks, and within art blocks you could have different tires to what it said. It's very difficult to actually say which ones will do well because I never bought ringers because I didn't find them that attractive personally, but they are one of the best performing assets. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's something that I did not see that was there. Somehow the market knew. The market is a final arbiter. Market will choose what is considered to be valuable or not. Do I regret it? Yes, definitely, just because of the return. But even now, even after that value appreciation, I don't find that particularly attractive to me. But art is subjective. Different people can find differently. Fidenza was something I loved, but I was not awake during the drop. Then I never got into it. And I can see why people like it. Some of the one of my favorite ones right now is Resonance, and Ignition is also there, but it's a bit more basic than Resonance. Resonance is by Gidot, G1DO. It's beautiful. It's 3D, and I love these 3D generative arts. The reason, but it won't perform as well as 2D right now. I think it's because of the display structure. There's in a way to truly absorb such 3D art, and I think on a future perspective, such art, 3D based generative art would outperform 2D based ones based on the current value differences. Because if you look at most of the 3D ones that are like interactive type of NFT ones, they haven't appreciated as well as the 2D more beautiful ones. And I think this variation will start to like catch up as the display structures for it start to improve. So that's one part I'd say I think that might do well in that sense. Then I think each block art is actually pretty good, but the element of it having a user input. So art blocks is like click, mint, done. you're done with it. But with eBlock art, you need to select how you design the stuff. You've got to name it. You give it a description. That's nice, but at the same time, it causes minting friction. So most of your user base here are lazy people who have a small attention span. That's like that. We don't want to name. I don't want to name my NFT because I've got to think again. I don't want to think. I just want to click a button and it comes up. But there are still some of them I really like and I do mint, and I just give them random names. But such in terms of the design, the dynamic, it's amazing because you've got a user input and then you've got an artist input. So it's two people that's coming together to create an artwork, and that's amazing. So I also love that. Maybe in the future it'll pick up as more sophisticated minters and what you call market participants come in. So that's another one. Yes.
This is super interesting because I don't think we've ever spoken to anyone about generative art on this episode. And like, I think a lot of people will learn a lot of new things. And I am also learning so many new things. That's quite interesting. So talking about generative art, I did an episode with Mooncats Ponderware team yesterday. Do you own any Mooncats?
I do have one. So during the minting phase, I was outside, so I couldn't. But then I saw it on my Discord. Like, once in a while, you just pop up Discord, see what's going on. And I saw it, and then I've got a group of friends. And I was like, guys, just mint this. It's like free to mint. And they minted a couple, and one of them sent me one. I'm just holding it. Just because it's a historic kind of thing. And it was actually the entire story is fun. It's like it might be one of the there was Mooncats before it, I think. That was an archaeological find kind of thing.
Yeah, so Mooncats only. Wait.
And then there's one before that also, another cat.
No, Mooncats, I'm not sure. So the earliest NFT is like Etheria project.
No, not Etheria. Yeah. Before the one we're talking about is which cat again?
Mooncat.
So there was another cat NFT just before that, like a week before that. That was also kind of an archaeological thing. Oh, and I think the second one is this one. Yeah, I don't remember the exact name.
Yeah,
I'd have to search for it, but yeah, there was one before it. I'll just send you a link once I find it. After that is this, and the entire story was beautiful. People find this random contract, and they're like, "Oh, there's so many left," and then people are searching for it. So the entire story behind that itself is beautiful. So I have one just for my long-term holdings.
That's
not awesome. Something I'm looking to sell. Just something that's just there.
Yeah, it's historic after all. Yeah. Right. And like I was talking to the team, and like it's such a wholesome story because there's this guy who was like one of he minted in the first week in 2017, and he was so mad about it. He was like, "Oh, this is awesome." He was a coder. His name is Brooks, whom I spoke to yesterday. And that time he made a very detailed Mooncat contract review. Like, this is a genius contract and whatnot. And right. And it was in 2017. So I asked him, man, how many views and comments did that Reddit post get? He's like, it got 6 likes and like 2 comments, and I can go and see it right now as well. But like in 2021, it blew up. And there was a small Facebook group of 10 people who had bought the Mooncats in that time. So they messaged him like, hey, Mooncat blew up. So he joined the Discord, and people mistook him for being the founder of it. And they were just bombarding him with like a lot of these things. So like, it's so fun. Like, communities are just like, being built on top of just history, and just it's all about community in NFTs, right? Like, it's all about the people whom you are taking part in. So I love that story. I'll send you the link to that because it's a very nice episode in my opinion. Also, you spoke about Avastars, right? And I think Avastars probably you also think is like a well-defining journey for you to make a shift from a trader to probably going, I don't know, like a whale kind of scene for you. So correct me if I'm wrong. Like, is that
I don't see myself as a whale. I don't see myself as a whale. Maybe now an NFT whale because I have so much NFTs, but otherwise no. Liquidity wise, I don't consider myself a whale at all.
Yeah. It unrealized profit.
Unrealized whale. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
illiquid JPEGs. Yes.
Yeah, of course. So, what was that journey? How did you get into Avastars? What are Avastars?
So I think I got into Avastars after Chain Faces, if I'm not mistaken. So in the Discord group, they were like saying, okay, there's this new one, and Jimmy was there. It's like he explains it, and then I went in and I started reading about it. It was really cool because they've got the entire artwork on chain. So basically how they did is they separated the traits, and each of the traits is uploaded in SVG. SVG is like a vector file. You can upload SVGs on chain completely, and then what they do is each of that is generated on your system while you scroll, and then you can mint it as an NFT. So it basically what you call combines the SVGs on chain. So you have the entire data to recreate that Avastar without ever having a server to store the IPFS or the image at all. It's the entire data to recreate that image is on chain. You don't need anything else to recreate it, and that was amazing at that point of time. People haven't done the similar model, I think, after that. I'm not sure why, but yeah, that was one of the things that started exposing me to the concept of having on-chain storage and like a bit more on the more quality side of how an NFT works. And they had this element of scrolling. So it's basically when you scroll, different things are generated. And they took that element from Clover. There was this one thing called Clover Network where you used to scroll for different stuff. I just used it a bit. I was never into it, but there were a couple of people who, were really into Clover and all. Now it's not active anymore. So they took those elements and they combined it, and they had this Avastar thing. So I came in during the founder auctions, and all the founders were going for like 5 ETH, 10 ETH. 10 ETH was the buy now price. And at that point of time, 10 ETH is a very high amount. Now we are seeing it as a small amount, but that point of time, 10 ETH is a very high amount because the entire space was like a microcosm. It was like a niche within a niche. So crypto is a niche. Then you've got altcoins, a niche within it, and then you've got a niche within altcoin that's NFT. So it was like a really small niche. And so you almost knew everyone in the community because you go to a new project, Discord, you'll find the same faces everywhere. It was just us, buying and selling between each other. It was like that. And so we saw this avatar, and I really wanted a founder because it was really cool, the entire idea. And there was only 100 founders, and most of them were going for about 4 ETH, or like most of them were 3 to 4 ETH minimum. And I had only, I think, 3 ETH in total with me at that point of time. So I had to like find one that I could like snipe with a decent, and it was all auctions. And there was one, the Avastar founder I have right now, and I got it for 2.1 ETH. This is when ETH was like $200, so it's just $400, but that's a large amount at that point of time. I didn't have that kind of liquid amount, and so I had to wake up at 4 a.m. in the night just before I put an alarm, just before the auction ended, and I put 2.1 ETH. Like, I hope I get this, and then I got it. So that was really good acquisition for me because I didn't expect to get it at that price, and I got one. And it's after that point that I started more exploration into different things, and I started finding new things. And Avastars also like paid me back really well because initially we had a Modrats, one of like a whale collectors, art collector. He used to buy a lot of aftermarket, and he used to buy just what he likes. He never lowballed. You put one price, and if he likes it at that price, he'll just buy it. So I made a lot from flipping Avastars. Like Avastars, that initial series one, flipping was really good to me. I made a like decent stack from it. Also during that, I went into like crypto voxels, flipping that. So both of them together kind of like drove my my liquid amount up, which I could play more stronger plays on NFTs. So that's kind of like an emotional attachment I have to that Avastar because that's the time I see where I started like fledging as a trader within the NFT space after that. So yeah, that's how I got into Avastars basically.
That's awesome. So, how many Avastars did you buy initially, and like how many did you flip?
I have no idea. If I want, I can take a look right now because there's this one. I have it open right now. Let me check.
Yeah.
Right now I have 221 Avastars. I think I bought like 10 to 20. See the last page. So I think I bought like 10 to 15 initially. Mm-hmm. Then I sold my first one for 0.8 ETH. So I bought each of them for 0.07. and then I saw a full one for 0.8, and there's one for 0.2, and a couple of ones 1.6 and stuff like that. So it kind of
So
like
you kept on buying the floor? Is that
no.
what you do?
So with Avastars it wasn't like that. So basically the way Avastar worked was you would scroll down on
Oh,
your
so you
PC.
actually generated more
Yeah,
instead
so
of
you could,
okay.
yeah, you
Yeah.
could buy the different rarity tiers to it. You have the basic, you have the uncommon, you've got the rare, and you've got the legendary. So the basic is 0.07, then 0.14, then 0.28, then 0.56, and then 1.16. So I used to buy the ones that look good for 0.07. And then if Modrats liked it, he was basically the entire market at that point of time. If he liked it, he used to just buy it for whatever value he saw at it. So I used to buy only common 0.07 ones that would look good, and I used to search for like dual legendary dates and stuff like that for later on. And I used to keep flipping and then buying more and flipping and like that. We kind of studied like what kind of stuff Modrats likes, and then we used to what you call buy the kinds of we like, so we could get a flip and develop our stuff from there, and that's how we like compounded from there.
Yeah, so this was like play to earn for you, right? Like
Yeah,
you
it
figured it
was
out.
scroll to
Like
earn. We call it scroll to earn.
scroll to wow, that's it's funny. It's hilarious and very smart in a way that you found, right? Like this is where I'm getting my liquidity from, so might as well. It was the exploit in the system for you, right?
Uh, Kind of, yeah.
Kind of.
It's the way I just saw it at that point of time was there was someone who liked certain things and he wasn't willing to spend the time on it. So
Yeah.
we did the work, and if he liked something, he bought it. That's the way I saw it. And so we just kept doing it till at a point of time where he started like reducing his hold. Not he didn't
Mm,
start buying as much. I think that was in series 2 though. Series 1 was really good for us.
mm, mm.
Whoever
Very
did
good.
the thing did was really good.
So, this is something we had discussed earlier also. Like, we are in Asian, Middle Eastern time zones, right? Which are not ideal for most of the projects. How do
Yeah.
you feel about that, right? Like, do you think you lose opportunities to like mint good
Oh,
stuff
so
or
many, so many. So if I was awake during the Bored Ape, I would have minted because I knew like Pranksy was minting it, and I was like, yeah, definitely I'd mint some, but I wasn't awake. And then there was a couple of other ones I missed because I slept during that time. Initially, like when the huge run was there between March, I didn't sleep at all during the night because one, it was COVID, so there was nothing to do in the mornings, and so I used to I could be awake through the night, and that was fine for me because I'm generally a night owl. But back in I think Jan and Feb, when I started to do decently well and my liquidity was decent, where I didn't have to like try to earn so much because I kept enough for a couple of years, like emergency funds and all that stuff. I dealt with the financial side of it. I started focusing more on my health because I put on a lot of weight during the COVID and stuff like that. So I had to go back to once everything started opening up, I had to focus more on my health. I started sleeping better. In a way, I don't regret it because it doesn't matter how much money you make, you still need your health. Your health is your fundamental thing. So once I reached that point of financial security for me, I was fine. Even though you feel sad, shit, I missed this opportunity. It's fine, the ones that you know that drops are about to happen, like certain ones that you really like. I believe Fakranda's one was at 2. No, Fakranda's was at a good time. There's another one that was, I think, at like 3 the last week. I don't remember which one. I stood awake for that. Occasionally, I stay awake and I, what you call, the ones I really like, I try to cop them, but not. I can't get into all of them. You can't be in all of the projects. You've got to start accepting that at this point of time
yeah,
because
yeah.
the market has become huge. There was a
Mm.
time when you knew all the projects that are coming out and you could almost get into all of them, but now it's way too huge and you need to kind of like specialize in your niches.
Yeah, what do you think about the market growing so big and like it kind of happened in March as well, and I think it's happening again now.
Yeah.
So,
So
what do you think about it?
the way I see it, there were like between now and then there were like three waves, like three main waves for NFTs. One was during the Rari phase, like when Rarible gave that Rari out, and there was huge influx of people coming in with the NFTs, art NFTs. There's a large amount of volume going on, and you had more people from the trader community from CT and all, a couple of people coming in and exploring it. I believe that was the first phase that we saw with like a massive in terms of like NFT expansion. And then we saw one in January with the TS, NBA TS, NBA Top Shots coming in. And that was another massive run for NFTs in general. Even though it was concentrated in TS, we had a huge seep-in effect from TS into other NFTs. And then the recent one we have right now with PFPs, like the Bored Ape kind of, I believe the Bored Ape started out with that NBA TS players seeping in and they started exploring, and then you are exploring on the Bored Ape thing, which led to the PFP run along with the generative art. So the generative art and the PFP kind of like went together, and that's our third wave right now. That's the way
How
I
do
like,
you,
we got three
how do
waves.
you feel about it? How do you feel about it?
I feel amazing concept. I'm loving the liquidity right now. There were a lot of these items that I just had that I could just like, I could keep stacking up, selling older, more mature collections that have an active, healthy market, and then buying new, riskier projects. Because even if I lose money, I don't have such like a massive problem because I enjoy the things I buy. Most of them I enjoy. Occasionally, there's the one that you buy. Okay, this might be a good flip, and then you get fucked, and you're like, okay, fine, it's part of the market. But then most of the things I buy, I actually like them. So it's like I enjoy. Like, I don't mind keeping it for a while, even if it goes to them. Like, okay, fine, it's one of the things that happen. But then when you have a large like machine gun kind of investment style, you just need one of them to do well, and you're well and good for all the other ones that failed. So yeah.
That makes sense. So, on your Twitter, you have this post called COLIN Index, right?
Yeah.
And it's very like a person looking at your post generally wouldn't think that, like, you have such deeper thoughts, because most of the
It's mostly
time
shit posting.
all of us are like, shit posting, right?
Yeah.
But like there's way more to it, right? Like, because there's so much nuance in thought, and there's so much uh, I'm sure, right? Like, so much research you do to actually, like, find out what are these projects, what is actually generative art and history of things. I think you did the same with gaming as well. To just before buying, so much work goes into it, people don't see. So I find that very interesting, a balance of, like, deep thought and shit posting, which I think I try to do it as well. But
Yeah. Everyone does it. If you need to survive
like,
in the CD space, you need to shit post.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's helped like very much. Like, like a lot of people, like, just see random posts and they're like, oh yeah, this dude seems funny, and they're like founders of big companies and
Yeah.
big projects, and they're like, yeah, let's do the podcast. I'm like, okay, sure, let's do that. Sure. So it's very funny to me, honestly. And yeah, so let's talk about COLIN Index. What is it? What is your thesis?
So COLIN is this. It's an index that's called cost of living index. So it basically gives you an idea of how much it costs to live in a certain country, because different countries have different economic standpoints. So if you've traveled between countries, you can actually notice it. For different people, it's different. It's like if you're going from India to a European country, everything is expensive. When a European person comes to India, it's like everything is cheap. And for a lot of Indians, since we come to the Gulf region, the Middle East, a lot of us, after we come here, we earn some, and then we go back, we feel we are rich back in India, because there's a massive difference between the cost of living. You have so when you have a higher cost of living index, your base salary is higher because you need a higher amount to survive off. And this this creates differences in the quality of life. So if you are in a higher COLIN country, and then you, after you earn for a while, and then you go back to a lower COLIN country, and you've got a certain amount of savings, your quality of life in the lower COLIN country will be higher than the one you could have lived at in the higher COLIN country. So the basic idea is quality of life and how it affects based on how much it costs to live there. Now, when we generally compare them, most of the time we don't notice these differences unless you travel between countries. But when you're in the cryptosphere in particular, you start to notice this drastically. It's basically when you're like minting something, you're spending maybe like 0.6 ETH to mint. That's like $2,000. That's more than a month, a couple of months in India, living in India, like decently, not like as like lavish lifestyle, but decently enough. And that's a huge difference, like the way we spend to interact with the ecosystem and work in the ecosystem, and the way our quality of life can be improved with that amount back in our real world. So main reason I did it was, at that point of time, there were a lot of artists coming in from different countries around the world, and you had a lot of them putting sale for their pieces at these are like new artists in terms they never had a previous market history with NFTs, and you had them coming in putting them at amounts that you see other people selling at, because the way Twitter algorithm works is we always more engagement comes to things you sell at higher prices and people buying at higher prices. So we are mostly exposed to the things that sell at higher value, and then we think, okay, this is we can sell it at this amount. But for a new artist coming in, I think it's not a good idea to start at a high amount, because the first thing you need is a collector base. So this is not based on what I did. It's based on what I observed, based on how I've seen different artists come along the way and how they've developed their own unique community sphere around it. And my personal experience. So sometimes I like an art. Okay, I see on Twitter, I like this art. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go buy it. I click on it, and the moment I see one ETH and he's got no market history, he or she has got no market history, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't think I'm going to buy that. Because even if I like the art, at some subconscious level, I've got to justify it as an investment. Even if it's not an investment, at some subconscious level, I've got to justify it as an investment. And most of the players in the market, I believe, are similar, because even if we like the art, there's an element of it that I should be able to maybe sell it at a higher price later, or at least get the same value later on. So the thing is, as a new artist in the space, it's more important to make those initial sales to grow that community base. Most of the high selling artists, most of them, not all of them, they don't have that high price, because they were like they came with their high initial cost. Like if you take an example of Hakatao and Xcopy and all, they sold their pieces for very low amounts. I think the initial sales was 0.1, 0.15 when things were like at $100, $200, and you can see them occasionally talking about it. And so they built up their collector base in that way, because at that point it was a different market also. And but still, they built up their collector base from people collecting it at lower price values, where there's a larger market risk involved. So it's always good to have a lower price value, not very low, but low enough that a collector doesn't feel, okay, I don't mind spending this amount. Which, the way I've seen it, is generally between a 0.1 to 0.3 to 4 kind of range, which personally also feels the same. Like if I see something between this and I really like it, I don't mind buying it, because it's a justified risk for me. So when you are coming from a lower COLIN country, you have the flexibility of selling something for lower, because even when you do a sale at 0.3, 0.2, that's a couple of weeks of living expenses. So you have that flexibility to improve your quality of life, selling at a lower price value. This works in two ways. One is you improve your own quality of life by selling your art. Oh, that's always good. A sale is always good, even if it's at a lower value. Other one, you're expanding your collector base to a group of people that can buy it at a lower value, and not everyone can buy it at large values. And it's always good to expand your collector base, and it's always good to reward your early collectors, because they will be the largest proponents in the space. The people who always talk about you will be your first collectors. They'll still talk about you. And it doesn't matter, even if they don't collect in the future, they'll still talk about you. For example, how we talked about Silvio and Primal, because those were one of the first I took, and I bought at lower amounts compared to what I buy now. So yeah, I still talk about them, because that is one of my first pieces. So it's always good to have this initial collector base which buys at a lower acquisition cost, and also it helps that you're coming from a lower calling country where you can improve your quality of life. So I was like showing a difference of if you're coming from different countries, how you should view pricing your structures, and how you should view increasing your collector base, and how the entire thing works. So basically, that's how the thought came into it. I've thought about it for a long time, but I'm too lazy to type it out. Then I was like, one day, okay, I'll type it out today.
That makes sense. That makes sense, right? And that's the thing, right? Like, and I think for most people, when you're trying into NFTs, this is like an additional source of income, right? Like
Yes.
you probably maybe in future, right? Like they'll be like, hey, mom, I just want to be an NFT artist, which is completely fine. But for now, people who are exploring, so they can actually take that risk and price it lower, and like, get that collector base running. right? Because that's what it's a I'm not going to call it a sunk cost effect, but like, you know, when someone buys, it's in their best interest to grow that artist community,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
It's in their best interest to shill it.
exactly. Or like, you know, just talk about it. I've seen so many people talk about so many things because they just bought, right? Like, and you
Yep.
can't have the buyer's remorse. But if I think the same way as you do, like, hey, that artist you like, maybe only I like it. I'll probably end up buying it. And then,
Yeah.
like, you know, we both are creating a big network effect between
Yep.
our followers. And then, like, you know, it grows. It's amazing, right? Like, this is social engineering
Yep.
happening. And so it's very like, it's good. And I think you only mentioned that even Beeple did those $1 sales when he was, you know.
Yeah. So, but that's, I think that's more particular about Beeple, because Beeple
Yeah,
already had kind of a like strong following. So even
yeah,
if his first auction on Nifty Gateway actually went for pretty large amount, I don't remember the amount. But Beeple is Beeple, like he came out with this like $1. I'm like, fuck you guys, let's buy. Like, so he's got that, like no
yeah,
care, let's do random shit kind of attitude, which is really cool. So he did this $1 drop where you could buy it, and there were a lot of people who profited from it, and that was like really cool in a sense, like. But even now he does these occasional $1 drops, although it's become lottery now. So he keeps his unique style where he's like, the focus is not always like money, like just buy shit, like he's got this like maverick kind of drop style, which is like really cool. But now his collector base has reached a point where it's difficult to do such kind of
yeah.
such kind of models. And his initial open edition was also pretty cheap, like comparatively cheap. Right now it was $1,000 at that point of time, but it included the entire like the physical and stuff like that. But yeah, it was, even then people who bought it for that amount are like way up right now, at least 5 to 10x right now.
That's awesome. So do you collect any profile picture PFPs, NFTs?
I have so many PFPs. I have so much crap right now. I have so much crap right now. I don't even know how much crap I have right now. I think I've gone over 4.4k NFTs, and I was only at 3k like last month. So I think 1.4 of that has been all through this PFP shit.
Wow. And did you
So
end
much.
up making money on any of them or most of them,
Some of
or it
them.
was
So if I did sell what you call during the first hype wave, I would have. So some, but not all of them. I don't like selling that first hype wave anymore because it's a lot of work. You've got to sit through after the drop, and you've got to price it and all that. And I'm too lazy to do that. I prefer selling after that. There's always an initial hype phase, and then it dumps and it kind of like stabilizes. And then if there's an active community, it starts going up the second one. And that's when you get better price appreciation. I prefer doing it during that point of time because it's easier to sell during that point of time, and you can take your time and you get a larger return from it. But all of them don't happen like that. If I
Mm.
invest in maybe like 10 or 20 of them, I might only get like 2 or 3 maximum. But that's enough. Like the 2 and 3 makes up for the other ones. Occasionally, I do sell into the initial hype phase to get out my initial, but not always. It depends on a lot of factors, like where I am, like do I have time, and like if I have something to do and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say I am like net negative. I'm kind of like neutral.
Mm. Mhm.
But some of them are in overall. If I look, yeah, I think I'm positive. Like unrealized piece. Yeah, I don't know.
Awesome. So any recent like within a month or two projects which you found extraordinary? You're like, oh,
I
this
think
is
Fluff is amazing. I think
okay.
Fluff is amazing, and I went hard on it, and I still have most of it. I do expect the team to deliver because one is it's a non-anon team. They're all known, and it's like it looks like a group of team, and I like the 3D procedural generated artwork. The artwork is like okay. There are some I like, some I don't like. There's this one bunny with like this rings who's like dancing to trance music, which I like vibe with a lot. So yeah, so it depends. Like some of them I like, some of them I don't. But then entire what they promise to deliver is like really good in my opinion. I like it, and one I think it's the highest quality 3D completely 3D generated PFE one, and they've got the. It's not just like a still image. They've got the 3D bunny, and they've got music and they've got a movement for it, which is like really cool. So I like that one in particular, but I'm not sure how it'll do. I mean, it did amazing wave in that initial one. I saw like 3 or 4. That's it, but then I kept the rest. So it's down now. They are a 0.09 mint cost. It's around zero point 0.4 to 0.5 right now, which is still above mint cost, but it's down from the highs of 1.7. I think was the highest it went to in flow value. So yeah, I like that one right now. Then I missed one yesterday. The generative masks. They look so good. They look so good. I'm so sad I missed it. But the flow is too high right now for me to justify entering it, and I might wait and see how it goes. But I really like it because I checked the Coders portfolio. I think you said it to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's got crazy ones, like crazy artwork. So I just followed him. Anything he drops later, I'm going to definitely copy because I really like his work. So that's one I think will do really well.
Yeah, I got up and I'm like, what people are talking about masks now? I'm like, let's see. And they did look good. And, they were, what I like is, what I find really interesting is it didn't have any rarity. It's just whatever it is, right? Like you generated, everyone is like a one-off pieces, right? So that's something very fresh because we've been hammered with this profile picture NFTs with like, hey, this is rare, that is not rare, golden and whatnot, right? So this was
Pixel Glyphs also did that. There was this one project, Pixel Glyphs.
Okay.
So they also did that. That's kind of like the Bits for AI one. That's also why I went deep into that. I don't know. I like those kind of like dot pixel based artworks, generative art in a way. All of them are unique. There's no rarity tags within it.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that makes sense in a way to deliver that way because there's not a lot of people doing it, right? It's just random copy paste of source code, copy paste of art happening right now.
But one thing I've noticed in this market is that if you want your project secondary market to do well, a rarity tagging is kind of essential.
Important.
Like, because what happens is the higher end sales drive the flow value. So the higher end sales justifies people to say, okay, this feels valuable, and then they buy the flow to have an exposure to it. So the rarity tag kind of like, and plus it's also your user base. The large amount of your user base are kind of like gamblers. Majority of the players here are either like they're in crypto because they've got gambling addiction.
They're called Degen. Okay.
Yeah, Degens.
They're called Degen.
It's a gambling addiction. And you've got Coco players. You've got all. So your large user base is kind of has a thing for gambling. They like playing the roulette. So then that's why the rarity test is kind of an important element in the market. But you can technically, it's not that you have to have it. You can have a project that doesn't have it and it can still develop well. But then it wouldn't have the higher end sales from these rarity tires driving value towards the floor and the entire collection.
Very interesting. I think I agree to that because that's what you see, right? Like you see a sale that happened. Oh, he bought it for 40 ETH or he bought it for 120 ETH, and then like boom, boom, boom. It goes on, right? That just makes sense. Okay, so we'll just talk about almost at the end of it. We'll talk about what was your biggest flip.
I think in terms of like the percentage, it would be one of Mad Dog Jones, his artwork. I purchased one of his for like $1, and I flipped it for 50 ETH when ETH was like 3,000 or something. Yeah, so that would be in terms of like ROI percent. That would be the biggest one I had. Other than that, I'm not sure. I think that would be my biggest one. So there was one. I bought a Euler Beats for like 3 ETH, and I had like a 320 ETH bid I never accepted. So that would be my highest unrealized one that I never flipped. But yeah, so far that's the one.
So is that the one you regret the most as well? The Euler Beats one?
Yeah, kind of. That would be one of my biggest regrets in the space, not taking that 320 ETH bid. It's not. I mean, like I'm still fine with it. I still think it will do well. I'm not like the entire concept is pretty good, and it's like a very small supply based project, and I think it will do really well in the long term. But that 320 that point of time would have helped me like get compounded easily, because I would have put a bunch of it into punks and stuff like that, which would have like compounded me way more. So in that sense, yeah, I could have played the liquidity more, but then at that point of time, I was also pretty liquid. I had around 60 to 80 from that. The Mad Dog Jones flip was during that time, and I was like pretty liquid. I don't know where I spent most of it. It went to different chains, because I bought some Kusama and all that stuff, and then I started doing it on Polygon. So the liquidity is kind of like spread out. But yeah, that definitely would have helped a lot.
Very cool. What are few projects which you're so glad you minted?
Art blocks, definitely. The Gidot ones are really cool. I really love them. Squiggles, definitely. Although I didn't mint enough, I should have minted more. That's mainly for the returns, because art-wise is just simple. I enjoy it. It's no froze thing, so I'm just like, I minted it. But the returns have been amazing on it. Then Avastars, definitely, because I enjoy the entire thing. There's like, it's distributed. Some people like the art, some people don't. I'm like, I like it enough. And then other ones, I think that would be about it. Yeah, that's about it. I think there's one I recently minted. Just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Fluffs. I'm glad I minted that one.
Yeah, awesome. And any ones which you regret not minting?
Oh, Bored Apes. Definitely Bored Apes.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one that I regret not minting. There's no other ones that kind of brought that regret to me.
Very cool. So
Glyphs. But I wasn't active during that time, so yeah.
Did you end up buying any Bored Apes after that? Like,
nope, never touched it. I don't touch any project that has Bored Ape along with it. I'm like, nope, I hate that project. Yeah, right. Another one I'm excited about is Paint Glyphs.
Okay.
It's a really cool one. It's kind of like a derivative of autoglyphs, but you have like user input. You can like change the colors and stuff like that. It's like really cool. So also Paint Glyphs, yes.
Very cool. Okay, all right. So before we end it, like, so tell me, what the hell is your profile picture on Twitter right now? And
that's a Pegs.
How expensive or how cheap is it?
It's a Pegs. It's done by Matt Fury, the creator of Pepe. So I got it for 2.8 ETH at the point of it was an auction. I got it for 2.8 ETH. Now the floor is around 70 or 80 ETH.
Wow. How do you think about that? Like, what do you think about it?
I only have one, so I'm sad I can't sell it. So I'm not sure, because if you sell too early, it's like you'll have that regret. And it's only 100 supply, and it's really cool also. It looks really good, and I like the thing. So it's kind of like, I always like having at least two of the items. So you can sell one when you have like a decent premium value, and then you can keep the other one. So I'm kind of like conflicted about it, but it's a really, really cool one. Although the last couple of ones, the auctions went for like 40. They were like, the lowest one was 25 and 25 to 45. So I think the good like value, I would say, that you can get like a nearby sell is like 30 to 40. So it's like, okay, it's not bad. It's still a good return, but yeah, I don't want to sell it at this point of time anyways.
Very cool. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to tell people, like, who want to get into NFTs, who want to flip, who want to make a living out of NFTs?
Number one is always keep yourself liquid. Never go all in. You should always know what your size is, how much you can buy, how much you can sell, because you're going to make losses. You're going to book losses, a lot of losses. So it's always good to be liquid. Never go all in. Only do it. Doesn't matter who says this is the next big project. No, it doesn't matter what people say. Make sure that it's based on how much you can buy, how much you wouldn't have a problem losing. That's your number one consideration. And number two is have fun. If you don't have fun, you can't survive in this place. Because the reason most of us who've been there since, I've been there since 2019, but even then those people in 2018, since the CK phase, they're there is because of the fun they had. Because it was fun, it's like generating pictures, talking to these people here, and then bouncing crazy ideas. You had fun. The reason we stuck around for that time when there wasn't a large active market was because we were having fun flipping to each other, like having like shit talking with each other and all this stuff. So yeah, it's not, if you focus only on the returns, you're not going to be here long enough to have proper returns, because the return on this didn't come from being in the right project at the right time. It came from being in the market for that long. a lot of the returns I got were from things that I didn't expect to get returns, but after a long time, they just went boom. So yeah, it's time in the market beats timing the market. So yeah, very few people can actually time the market. There are very few people who actually do that. So it's always being in the market, and the only way you can be in the market is by having fun. It's like making your friends within the market, your squad, where you're like you're talking about new projects, discussing it. Find your squad, have fun, and be solvent. That's the only main thing you need to be there about.
That's awesome. Thank you, Barthazian, for being here. It was a fun experience talking to you. I learned a lot, and I'm sure, people listening to this will also be learning a lot.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Glad to be here.